Hi, I'm Tiffany, and this is Towering TBR. Before I get into the video, I want to say thank you so much for all the people who watch and subscribe. I recently hit 100 subscribers, and I am so excited. Thank you so much. I did mention it in my vlog since that's when it happened, but I know not everybody watches vlogs, so I wanted to make sure I said thank you for subscribing and watching and commenting. This is so fun, and I love when we make it a conversation. So, this video is the 10 worst books I read in 2022. I'm not counting DNFs. I only count books that I read all of the pages. So yeah, for some of them, I think there are an audience for that type of book. It was just maybe not for me. And others I think were trash fires. So yeah. The first, the least offensive, the most recommendable, I guess, on the list, number 10, is The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. I read this for a book club, and yeah, this was really depraved and hard to read. It is about a man who kidnaps women and tattoos them with butterfly wings and keeps them, and he also sexually assaults them and murders them. And the way they handle the sexual assault, because part of it is interviews with the police, they really dance around the subject, which felt very awkward about it. And this was just really unbelievable. Like, you kept turning the pages because so much stuff was happening, but you're like, I don't think it would happen that way. So yeah, it's fast paced, so I guess there's that, but yeah. And then the way the police officers talked to the victims was just dreadfully handled as well. So not a fave, obviously, none of these will be, but this was, I guess, the least of the bad. I also, I guess in number 9, would be putting Sorrow and Bliss. This focuses on a woman who has an unnamed mental illness. At the end, the author said that she made up this illness and did not base it on any, she didn't want to diagnose her character, and I actually hated that choice because some of her actions are known symptoms of, named illnesses, and I felt like that did it a disservice. I also felt like Martha, the woman with the mental illness, was incredibly unlikable. She married this wonderful man who bends over backwards for her, and she just completely takes him for granted, and it's not exactly a romance, but I was hoping he would get the courage to leave. She's squashed all over him. She's controlling and domineering and manipulative, and yeah, she was not a fun character to read about, and I kind of didn't care if she got better. I wanted other people in her life to not put up with it anymore. So I don't know why so many people like this, but it was definitely not a good book for me. Number 8 is Station Eternity by Mur Lafferty. This was my first book by this author. Her debut, 6 Wakes, had gotten a lot of praise, and so when I heard about her new one, I was like, oh, I'll pick that up. And basically, there's a human who feels like she's cursed. People always seem to get murdered around her. And she then solves the crimes. She's like this kind of whiz, I guess. But she decides that she doesn't want to be around humans anymore because she feels like she's killing them, essentially, with her curse. So she goes to stay on this space station that has other alien life forms. And the other alien life forms are pretty much the only redeeming quality of this book. Like, I thought it was interesting to learn about them and how, like, what their backstory and what their, like, social norms are. And yeah, the rest of it, the writing is really flat. The characters are incredibly one-dimensional. And 2 people get spaced and are magically fine. Like, sorry, that's a bit of a spoiler, but, like, you have to make it make sense. Like, there are still rules in science fiction. And, yeah, that was just not very good. So, number 7 is Goodnight Punpun. This was a very weird manga about a 10-year-old boy who in the manga is represented by a bird, although everybody else is human. And it's a really weird story. It starts off with his mom getting injured and in the hospital and his dad going away. He doesn't know this because he's a kid, but as an adult, we know that likely the father has gone to jail for hurting the mother. And yeah, it's a story about his uncle coming to live with him to take care of him. And they search for porn, like him and his other 10-year-old friends. And then they find a porn tape and it's got like a secret murderer's confession on it. And if they dig up the treasure and turn him into the cops, like, they'll get this reward. It was just a lot of nonsensical things. And unfortunately, I didn't like any of it. It was weird and bizarre. And honestly, I wished I would have DNF'd it. But I kept persevering because it is very highly rated. So maybe a bit controversial. Number 6, I think. Yeah, hopefully. Number 6 is The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. I read this earlier in a vlog. If I remember, I'll link it in the description box below. But this was a mystery with 2 timelines. And in the past timeline, the main character and his 3 other guy friends and his group start using chalkmen to, like, signal when they want to meet up and where they want to meet up. And then there's a present timeline where one of the boys has gone, or men now, has gone missing. And yeah, there's murder mystery and it's a mess. The author was trying to do way too much. The conclusion, in my opinion, did not make a lot of sense. And there were basically no likable characters. And I think I'm learning that I gotta have somebody to root for, anybody. But yeah, it was just lazy writing and honestly was only interested in the past timeline. But trigger warnings for that because there is a sexual assault scene that came out of nowhere on a child, and that was really hard to read. So, yeah, check trigger warnings if you still decide you want to read the book. Number 5 is the last book I have physically, and that is Long Live the Tribe of Fatherless Girls by Kira T. Madden. T. Kira Madden. And yeah, this was a memoir, but it was in non-chronological order and kind of felt very much like vignettes, just snippets of her childhood. And yeah, I remember thinking, this is messy, this is disorganized, I don't care for the writing, I don't care about the story. So unfortunately, that was another one I should have DNF'd, but I ended up giving 2 stars. Number 4 is Notes on an Execution by Danya Kafka, I think. And yes, this was mismarketing all around because I thought this was going to be a thriller. The premise is that there is a serial killer on death row, and this is his last bit of time before he's going to be executed. And I heard that we would hear from the women in his life and maybe figure out what he is going to do. I definitely thought he would at least escape prison or something, but this is really just more a really slow character study. It starts off strong because we get the perspective of his mother. His mother was in an abusive relationship with his father, and at a point in his childhood, she finally gets the courage to leave, but she leaves her child with the abusive man. And then we switch to another woman who knew him, and like that part of the story was so compelling and really interesting. The rest of it, there was no tension, there was no excitement, there was no intrigue. Like, it just kind of laid out all the facts. And maybe if I knew going into it, it was a character study, I might have enjoyed it. But honestly, it was really boring and not much happens. So, yeah. Number 3 is Dumb by Georgia Weber. This is her graphic novel or graphic memoir about when her vocal cords started hurting when she'd used them. She went to the doctor and they told her that she needed to rest her voice for 6 months. And yeah, I felt like she just didn't do enough with this. Like she kind of touches a little bit on what it's like to lose your voice in a society that maybe already doesn't care about your voice. But she really just didn't dig deep. There's no satisfying conclusion. As a chronically ill person, I know that stories about illnesses don't get wrapped up nicely all the time. But I felt like she just stopped at a random point, like that just didn't give me any closure. And unfortunately, I didn't check the ratings on Goodreads, but that would have given me a hint that this was not a well-liked book. And yeah, the artwork also I just didn't jibe with. I felt like it was really simple and basic and just didn't add anything to the story. So I didn't enjoy that one. I ended up not rating that, but if I were to probably give it a rating, it'd be about a 2. These last 2 are just books that I don't think anyone should read. The first is in second place, The Churn by James S.A. Corey. This is a prequel short story about one of the members of the Expanse crew. And it kind of just talks about what his life was like when he was on Earth before he joined the crew of the Rocinante. And the authors did something that I found really annoying. But in the end, it made me like the character of Amos less. Yeah, it was a complete unnecessary book, and there was incest in it. And I feel like authors are trying to put incest in everything for the shock value, and it's getting to the point where it's not that shocking because it's in all these media. So I hated that and wish I hadn't read it. Don't feel that way about the other prequels I've gotten to so far, but that one was terrible. And my number 1 worst book, which I gave 1 star, is Pyongyang by Guy Delisle. This is his graphic memoir going to North Korea. And it was fine until the end when he goes into basically a propaganda museum and they talk about like the enemy kidnapping and torturing their people, and he decides to objectify the woman at the museum and says he wants to torture her too. And it was just, I don't know how that passed a publisher's eye. It was just disgusting. And like, I'm glad, I guess, that it happened at the end of the book because I did learn a little bit about North Korea. But like, I will never read anything else from this guy. And unfortunately, I had already read one of his other ones before knowing this. So, yeah, that was terrible, and I hated it. So, what is the worst book that you have read this year? Have you read any of the ones that I put on my list? Let me know. Let's have a chat down in the comments. Thanks. Bye.